receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
This is a struggle for the survival.
Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
And this will be our last chance to say.
Trying to free your mind, it is this feeling that has brought you to me.
At last.
No judge in U.S. history has ever told somebody what they can and can't say.
The whole purpose of the First Amendment is to keep the government the hell out of the business of speech.
Many of us had to be brought to the brink. A lot of us here have a calling.
I can only show you the door.
To awaken others.
You're the one that has to walk through it.
Spreading a message.
Something's happening, right?
The world is changing every day.
Civilization is weird.
Time is coming.
At a
Train
tipping.
can't be stopped. It's
Right?
already here.
If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
This is a struggle for the survival.
Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
And this will be our last chance to say.
Trying to free your mind, it is this feeling that has brought you to me.
At last.
No judge in U.S. history has ever told somebody what they can and can't say.
The whole purpose of the First Amendment is to keep the government the hell out of the business of speech.
Many of us had to be brought to the brink. A lot of us here have a calling.
I can only show you the door.
To awaken others.
You're the one that has to walk through it.
Spreading a message.
Something's happening, right?
The world is changing every day.
Civilization is weird.
Time is coming.
At a
Train
tipping.
can't be stopped. It's
Right?
already here.
If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
This is a struggle for the survival.
Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
And this will be our last chance to say.
Trying to free your mind, it is this feeling that has brought you to me.
At last.
No judge in U.S. history has ever told somebody what they can and can't say.
The whole purpose of the First Amendment is to keep the government the hell out of the business of speech.
Many of us had to be brought to the brink. A lot of us here have a calling.
I can only show you the door.
To awaken others.
You're the one that has to walk through it.
Spreading a message.
Something's happening, right?
The world is changing every day.
Civilization is weird.
Time is coming.
At a
Train
tipping.
can't be stopped. It's
Right?
already here.
I apologize. I was on mute. Thank you all for tuning into the True Perspective on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and Rumble. It's been a little while. I was supposed to be doing a show about a week, 2 weeks ago, on a Saturday, and there was a big there were some topics that were going to be discussed. That person ended up bailing out because they felt that the conversation was going to be too combative or something like that. Was all for it for like the first 2 weeks. Asked that I had send questions over. It was all like related to God and Jesus and all that stuff in the Bible and Scripture, and to make that person feel a little bit more comfortable on coming on, because they said that they had like psychological issues on having, I don't know, conversations, and I don't know. I could go to the inbox and talk about that, but I'm not gonna, not right now anyway. But anyway, this person was all for a few weeks. There was like actually really good exchange going on back and forth, and then that person ended up bailing because they made a post that had something to do with abortion, and I commented on it, and I was questioning their validity of where their facts were coming from, and apparently that was enough to derail the podcast that was planned out these past 2 Saturdays ago. And I think it was just a ploy for them to get themselves out of the conversation. So anyway, the show ain't about that, but that's partially the reason of the delay on doing some shows recently. I did have a good a person that I conversate with, Deacon Taylor, to come on. He's a veteran. That didn't pan out yet, on my end, rather, because of some scheduling issues, the holidays and all that stuff, and dealing with some family stuff. My mother hasn't really been doing too well, health wise. She's a little bit better now, but she was in the hospital for about a week, about 2 weeks ago, give or take, about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks. So my focus was on, family and just sorting through that stuff and making sure that she was good. And she's doing a little bit better, but she's still not at 100%. Whatever sickness that she ended up getting was like upper respiratory, and she doesn't have very good lungs. I'm not going to get into details about it, but for right now, but she just wasn't doing too well at first, and there was a concern for her, basically her well-being. And but now, she's been home since, and as far as I know, she seems to be getting close to better. I keep in touch with her. I visited her. I'm always keeping up to date with her and all that stuff, and making sure she's good. But yeah, that's that stuff has been going on. So yeah, I mean, there's been a few things going on, and then also like working a ton of overtime. I mean, when my job gives it, I take it, and then I just been focused on family, and I've been really like kind of taking a step away from a lot of stuff as best as I could. As far as like the whole social media stuff, I mean, not for any particular reason, mostly just like focusing on family. For the most part, and there's also been a lot of stuff that's been going on. I've been wanting to talk about, especially the Brown University stuff. I actually wanted to jump on the day of, which I probably should have, but I didn't, because I wanted to get more information on what to actually talk about, and the weird, odd stuff that has come from that. I'm sure everyone, especially who live in Rhode Island, which I live in Rhode Island and Providence, Brown University is like 10 minutes away from me, 10, 15 minutes away from me. Thayer Street is like a stone's throw from where I'm at. So hearing all this stuff that was going on is, and the police response, the Providence police response, and it seems like the Brown University police, because from my understanding, they have their own police. They have their own police detail. They have Brown, you have Brown police. Their only jurisdiction is the Brown campus, Brown University campus. And the fact that someone was able to walk in and do whatever they were able to do, this guy, this, I think his name's what, Carlos? Apparently, this is the guy that has unalived himself, and they discovered that he is a suspect, that he was the suspect, apparently. And we can get into that in a little bit. Yeah, I'm looking for his name. I think it's like Carlos something, some Portuguese national, which is like the oddest thing, like super random. Definitely not part of the particular narrative that American media has been loving on, utilizing to create stir of division and all that stuff. And apparently, some of the backstory with this guy is that he was a former student or something like that, or he had some disgruntledness. Like, there's a whole mixture of things that doesn't. I mean, it just sounds like generic story making, in my opinion. And I'm only going off of based on like what I've been able to read, what I've been able to listen to, what I've been able to watch. But apparently, this guy, is able to go in, one of these campus buildings without checking in. Like, there was a door that happened to be open, and from my understanding, Brown University, you can't open any doors without like a badge system. Like, they have a badge system, your ID, I think, open. I think. I'm going off of what some people that I've known that have either been there or they've had friends that have gone there, and like, you can't get in there without a badge into any of these buildings. And the girl that he supposedly killed, me, and there was another gentleman too. Two students were killed, and there were nine others that were injured. And we don't hear anything, as far as I know. We haven't heard anything from these witnesses, and I don't know if they're going to be able to speak or if they're given a gag order on speaking. But we haven't heard anything from those people, but also the people, any witnesses. We haven't really heard from any witness. I mean, I guess we heard from one, as far as I know. And I'll be honest, I'm speaking on the perspective that I've been kind of following this lightly, because of the actions of what Providence police had demonstrated, and supposedly the FBI with them. Completely bizarre, because there's some news, and I'm going to play it in a moment, but there's a newscasting where you see them in the background. They're shuffling the snow around with their feet, looking for so-called evidence. And I'm not a forensic scientist. I'm not an FBI forensic investigator. I'm not a detective. I'm not a state police detective. I'm not a police detective. I'm none of those things, right? But if you're part of that and you're looking for evidence, you'd think that they have better means on shuffling snow with their boots, looking for so-called evidence, like shell case. How are you going to find shell casings? By shuffling snow and just spreading it apart, and so there's a lot of moronic idiocy that I saw, and I'm sure a lot of people out there that would agree that there's just something that doesn't sit well and doesn't sit right with the fact of how there was a lack of professional response. Other than there was a presence. Okay, great. There was a presence of police going on, and supposedly the FBI and Kash Patel, director of the FBI, was involved in the investigation, or somehow overseeing some of the investigation, and whatever. I mean, whatever that means. But we're seeing these people. I'm going to show the video because when I saw this, it actually pissed me off. It was pissing me off, regardless of the fact that there was able to be some guy that was able to roll up in, one of the buildings. It's one of the most secure, supposedly one of the most secure, and also one of the most surveilled universities, I think, in the country, other than probably Harvard, Yale, whatever. But the Brown University is like one like top tier for students. Students from people from all over the world go there. It's an Ivy League school. It's heavily funded. It's like what $8 billion a year or something along those lines. And I'm just kind of throwing a number out there, but it's in the billions somewhere. And I think it's up there. I think it's close to 10 billion. It's like somewhere between 7 and 8. And I don't think they do. I guess they don't do classes on Saturday. I guess that was another big thing, that the president of the Brown University wasn't aware of any classes. And when she was made, also that's another thing that I saw, is that didn't she end up going for pizza or something like that? She ended up going to like get pizza afterwards or something like that. I don't know if that's 100% correct. Maybe I could look that up, but I'm typing it into Google right now because I'm pretty sure that was part of this big questioning. Part of the big questioning is that the president of Browning University, nonchalantly ends up going for pizza afterward during police trying to find who the hell this guy was that went in there and shot a bunch of people. President Brown University go for pizza after shooting. Christina Paxson is the president of Brown University. I'm looking for an article here that kind of goes into a little bit of detail. I mean, according to AI, it says, and I really, you know what, I'm not going to use AI. Screw AI. Because AI is their system. That's their system. This is, they I don't trust the AI. Who's Christina Paxson, president of university? So anyway, the rumor, allegedly, Christina Paxson, president of the Brown University, went for pizza shortly after this whole incident happened, or something along those lines. Oh, I'm sorry. It's actually the mayor, Brett Smiley, by the way, according to the AI summarization, says the president of Brown University, Christina Paxson, did not go for pizza after shooting, but sources indicate the mayor of Providence, Brett Smiley, ate pizza while the suspect in a recent mass shooting was still at large. And I mean, yeah, everyone's got to eat, but you're the mayor, you're the governor, you're the president of the Brown University. You'd think that these people would take these things a little bit more seriously, and I honestly don't. Based on, I'm going to show the video in a minute, but based on how the Providence police, I mean, come on, man. If one of you know Providence police officer, investigator, whatever, I mean, I'd like to speak with one. I'd like to speak with one who was directly involved or had some direct involvement on the investigation here, if they can talk publicly. I mean, I'd really like to have the chief of police, Providence Police, on. I'd really like to talk to him, because what the hell is this that was going on? I mean, and then they wonder why people bring up and start to think conspiracy theory, or think false flag, or think setup, because they see garbage display, and I'm sorry, it is a garbage display. I mean, how else is this able to be explained? I'm gonna put on freaking screen, and I think it was I don't know, it came out of TMZ. I don't follow TMZ, but I had it on my timeline, so I ended up sharing it. I think I'm gonna keep the sound off though. Okay, I apologize. It looks like it says FBI agents, not Providence Police, but I'm almost certain I saw a video where it showed Providence Police. So I apologize in advance if this is not Providence Police, but if this is the FBI, that's even worse. So supposedly this is FBI. So it does say FBI in this guy's jacket, it looks
You
like.
see them that they're kicking the snow out of the way, methodically looking step by step, looking to see if there's anything in the snow at all that can help point them in the right direction in this investigation. And if you look over across the street, Seth, for those of us just show, let me see it right over here. There's that team as well. They're doing the exact same thing across the street.
We're looking right now at the FBI, who has gathered their.
All right, I apologize. Apparently, it's the FBI. I was blaming the Providence Police about this. So, the fact that the FBI is shuffling around snow. I mean, come on, look at this. What is this?
You can see them.
Why would they do that? You don't see any metal detectors. I mean, if they had dogs, I don't even know if dogs. I'm pretty sure dogs they can find scent through snow. I mean, that's destroyed. I mean, immediately that's destroyed. And by the way, just by looking at the snow, it doesn't look like there's any footprints or anything other than where they're stepping. So why are they shuffling snow around during this? To supposedly look for evidence of shell casings or whatever. Like, how does this help? How does this help? How does this help at all? Look at this. It doesn't. I mean, is this part of training? Like, do they train? Hey, let's shuffle this snow around so we can look for shell casings. There was a mass shooting in an Ivy League school, and let's just kick snow around because, we got to look like we're doing something important. We got to make sure that we're collecting the evidence. I mean, if anything, you're smearing the evidence. You're contaminating any evidence, any scent trail. You've butchered that. I'm not a dog expert or anything like that, but I'm pretty sure you butchered that. Let's look over fences, make sure no one's there. No guns are drawn. None of the guns are drawn. At this time, I'm certain Providence Police is probably like circling the university, probably looking for anybody. No Brown police, no Brown University police. So I don't know. When I saw this, like them shuffling the snow around, I was like, this is a joke. This has to be a joke. It just smells false flag. It smells setup. It smells orchestrated chaos, which it is. I mean, at the end of the day, it is orchestrated chaos. It is a false flag, and I don't say false flag that it didn't happen. I'm saying false flag as in this is it just has the indication of something that was set up, and the fact that there was some speculation on there being a student part of the pro-Palestinian protest organization group out of Providence. I'm not going to mention the person's name because, I don't yet have enough information myself in order to entertain that thought entirely. So I don't want to show the person's face. I don't want to be a part of that crowd that would just start showing someone on the scene. I get it. There's been a bunch of people that have sent me inboxes about this person. And you probably know what I'm talking about. The guy had glasses. He had a similar build to what the suspected shooter looked like. but apparently they got the guy, or the guy got himself rather, some Portuguese national. It's super random. Um, like I said, it just displaces the narrative of all of this stuff, and it was just hard to follow after looking at, police detail, FBI detail, shuffling snow around with their boots, just, messing whatever evidence that there may have been, and that's just it doesn't look like protocol. And there were like two people that were in custody. One definitely was like pretty much doxxed. It was like a military veteran, um, I guess from Wisconsin or something like that. They said, "Oh, he came all the way like 17 hours to come and do what he had to do at Brown University." That story didn't mesh well either. And I don't know. It's just like, how do you go from having a supposed suspect? Like, where did they get that footage in order to find that? In order to discover and supposedly identify. We didn't even see any like actual footage from Brown University cameras, from my understanding. All we saw were cameras from, like, I guess, other businesses that are around there with their security cameras, and any Ring cameras, camera footage. But we didn't, as far as I know, as far as I'm under the understanding that we have not seen any Brown University cameras on the inside or on the outside. We haven't seen any. We haven't seen any Brown University police security footage. Nothing. As far as I know, if someone has that and is listening right now and wants to send that, and if we have any of that, please send it. But as far as I'm under the understanding that we have not seen anything in or around the Brown University campus, other than like Ring, like, the Ring camera footage, like the doorbell Ring camera footage, and security camera footage from, I guess, surrounding businesses. Other than that, we don't have anything else, as far as I know. Which is effing bizarre. It's just effing bizarre. Like, why is that footage not released? All we have are footage from, like I said, like ringtone. I mean, Ring camera footage. I don't know, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know. It is orchestrated chaos. I tell you that, though. It's absolutely orchestrated chaos. None of this stuff would be happening if it wasn't orchestrated chaos. I'm not saying that mass shootings don't happen like organically. They definitely do. We definitely have a history in America and in other parts of the world where that does occur organically. But a lot of these other types of shootings, mass stabbings, and all that stuff, these things are being deliberately orchestrated in order to create chaos, in order to create more stringent policies, especially on the Second Amendment, because the Second Amendment stuff has been coming up a lot more after this. Also, it always comes up after any of these types of shootings that end up coming up. It's always mass shooting. I mean, it's always anti-gun legislations want to be brought. They want to bring it up so that they can create more stringent laws and create more areas within these targeted zones where there's the least resistance. And so, I mean, what do you have Brown University police for if you can't protect the campus from what's happening and what's going on? It's crazy. And those are just some things. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to actually really like focus on any of this stuff anymore, because it's just so repetitive. It's almost becoming. I hate to say it, but it's like we're becoming more and more numb to it because it's becoming more and more expected, and it is. It's going to ramp up. I've been saying this for years that it's going to ramp up. Some are more. Some are a little bit less so-called less devastating than other mass shootings because some are more successful than others. You know what I'm saying? You get one or two people or a handful of people die on some of these, and then in one hand you get 20 people will get taken out. Like the things in Walmart. I think what was it, a few years ago? It was in Texas. I think 2019 Texas. There was like 20 people. 20 people were just taken out because the guy had a infatuation about taking out Spanish people. It basically who was targeted in Walmart. I'm gonna try and find that. Not the actual shooting, just so I have the correct area. Because and that person, I actually paid attention to El Paso. It was El Paso, and the shooter was trying to find the name. El Paso, Texas. Yeah, and he cited that he was like anti-immigrant or something like that, and he killed 23 people in a Texas Walmart in El Paso. So like, and his interview and stuff like that sounded like he was like severely freaking depraved and psychological and all that stuff. And I'm using psychological very loosely because this person speaks very coherently. I had watched the interview about him and all that stuff and listened to him when he was being interviewed by detectives and stuff like that. And yeah, he said something along the lines that he had like schizophrenia or something like that. But beyond that, he was coherent. And I'm not a psychologist or anything like that. But if you're coherent, you know what you're doing is wrong. You can identify what you're doing is wrong. There are people out there that I don't know. And I say this very lightly as well. I don't know if they know. I mean, I think they know that they know what they're doing is wrong, but they don't have any remorse for it. This person also didn't either, according to the case file and all that stuff. But that's a whole other case. I mean, there's just so many cases that have these mass shootings where a lot of people die or some people die, but a lot of people get injured. I'm not weighing it against, I'm not equating it to, how many people get hurt or how many people die during these things. What I'm saying is that some of these are just have Manchurian candidate type of, it just identifies as like a Manchurian candidate, like, a code word is said and boom, that snaps somebody into wanting to go hurt somebody or somebody's, right? So yeah, it's a weird one. And, especially during these times, like we have to keep our heads on a swivel, especially when you're in populated areas like a Walmart, like a Target, like a mall, or like a New Year's Eve. There's also recently during, right around this time, especially, and it's linked to like pro-Palestinian groups or something like that, protest groups here in America. And I guess 4 people, the FBI found that they were going to plan a so-called New Year's Eve or New Year's, terrorist act event. But that's just 4 out of like the 2 million of the so-called sleeper cells that are supposedly in here. And I'm not saying this Carlos guy is. He doesn't really fit the profile for that. I mean, it's just super random that he's even a Portuguese national. And I guess he had like some vendetta against one of the students or something like that. Someone was sending me something about that. Should try and pull that up if I can. I don't know if if it's 100% accurate, but it definitely. Shout outs to Just Jewett because she's been sending me a lot of stuff. A lot of people think that there's another person involved also, based on supposedly there's an official court document that was released 7 days ago prior to the suspect, I think. And it had 2 DNA profiles found on evidence, and both were run and none a match in court system. I don't know what that means. It's hard to speculate on some of this stuff. It's hard to even speak on some of it. Because all of this is super muddy. It's super muddy. Shout out to everybody that's on Twitter right now that's viewing in. The 3 of you. I appreciate y'all. I don't know if I could see the Twitter comments. Can I see Twitter comments if they comment? I'm trying to see if that comes up on my end on the on the platform that I use to broadcast to Twitter, YouTube, Rumble, and Facebook currently right now. Excuse me. Oh, what? I forget my password or something. Crap. Sorry about this, guys. I'm trying to log into my X account, formerly known as Twitter, because I don't know if I could see. I mean, I can see people viewing. I don't see anybody. If people do comment, it doesn't show on like the platform that I'm using. Anyway, got sidetracked. Yeah, a lot of this stuff is so muddy. It's hard to tell what exactly is truthful, what exactly is evidence, and what exactly is being a distraction, which I do think the Brown University thing is a distraction as well as it is something that's a false flag that occurred. It's just weird how they had 2 suspects at first, minus this person that this was before they even had any, so-called video footage of some guy walking around. They had 2 suspects, one of them being a military. If I'm sure about the other guy, I don't know if they released the name on the other supposed suspect that ended up being supposedly not the guy. But I know one of them was a military vet, supposedly out of Wisconsin, and completely ruined that person's reputation. I'd imagine. I hope that person sues. I hope they both sue if they had their information docs and all that stuff by media. But I mean, you're releasing information, so it seems like that sometimes when these things happen, that they're trying to. It's almost like they're trying to program the public to go along with their fall guy. Because when you have a suspect, you don't just release the information out. You don't just tell them like, "Hey, this is the guy." No, you just say like, "Oh, we have a so-called suspect. Clear the person if they are or are not the actual person that did the shooting. Don't release their information if they're not the guy, if they're not the person, because then you end up ruining somebody's life." Because some people will be out there, they just sees a news article and they don't follow up, and then they just believe that the guy that they caught was this, veteran or whatever. But yeah, I mean, this is mainly the only topic that I came on to actually talk about. It's been a while since I've come on here. Like I said, beginning of the show, I had a lot of family things going on, and I wanted to tend to that. Had a lot of overtime at work, still doing that up until, especially like during the holidays and stuff like that. So I've been doing that. Um, and I had 2 other shows planned out. One of them I had to reschedule. The other one, this person bailed out because she couldn't handle, having a conversation about um about God, about the scripture, because I had many questions about where her validity, where she was citing a lot of her so-called scholarly information from, and I pretty much called bullshit on it. But I wanted to see understanding. She thought that I was looking for a debate. I was looking for conversation. But here's the thing about liberalism, and I use this lightly because I don't like to put things in a box, but from the liberalists' perspective, when it comes to conversations about actual truth, about actual facts, they put their feelings in front of the fact of those truths. And so if their idea of that truth is against their ideology or their belief or their activism, then they deem that truth or that fact as an attack, as an enemy, as a negative, because they're basing their feelings over facts and over truth. And so when you're doing this, when you're someone that speaks from a logical, common sense position and a factually based position, I mean, yeah, you can have opinions, but opinions do not overcome facts. They don't overcome truth. The fact is the fact. The truth is the truth, and you can have an opinion on whether you like that or not, but that doesn't matter because the fact doesn't change. The truth doesn't change. So when you're someone that comes from a common sense, logical, truthful position, you're looked at as an aggressor. You're looked at as a toxic masculine. You're looked at as a colonizer. Apparently, those are the key liberal gaslighting words that they use. And also it's a defense mechanism for them to get out of a conversation that they cannot have. So, yeah, I mean, people should just stop talking about things that they don't know about, or they should be able to be honest with themselves and actually have a conversation to find understanding, to find a common ground of understanding. That's what I do on this podcast. I don't ever debate anybody on here. I'm not against it, but I mean, you're not going to come on here and bring information and not me press you on that information. Like, okay, where'd you get that from? Why do you think that way? And also, if I have factually based answers where it's like, no, that's wrong, and here's why, you're not going to be like, oh, that's just. You're not going to be the person that says like, oh no, you're just being aggressive. You got some. What it was in an inbox that this person had said to me something along the lines of like, there's some things that I have to work out in myself. It's a complete deflective move when you know that when someone stands strongly in the information that they know based on someone who pretends to stand on information that they know, and their fear is to be challenged on that information, in my opinion, it's weak. It's extremely weak. It's cowardice, especially if like you've invested time into trying to find understanding where there has been great exchange with the topics at hand, as far as, what do you think of this scripture, or where do you think that this comes from, or this person thinks that this was added in at this point in time in history, but doesn't have anything to back that up, and only goes off of like different scholars that are purposefully lying. And when I had called out some of these scholars, for instance, like Dan McClellan, who claims he's a scholar, and also Bart Ehrman, who also claims that he's a scholar, although he actually has some credentials to say that he's a scholar, but he purposefully lies on certain scriptures of scripture, like the writings of Paul and all that stuff. And there's a whole list of things that I don't even feel like going through right now. But people go and they follow these so-called scholars or so-called people who purposefully lie. Like, you can't. So for instance, if you're reading a book, and whatever book that is, and then you take parts of that book and then you say like, oh, this was added in 100 years later, it was never a part of the manuscript, but yet there's evidence in a lexicon that says, no, this scripture was already a part of it. This is how it's been translated in different ways. There's also footnotes to explain how this was translated in different ways, based on culture, based on time, based on the people and who it's actually talking to. And then you say like, oh no, that was just added in there 100 years later. That's a fallacy. That's a purposeful lie, because you know that it's there in the manuscripts, but yet you say that it was only added in 100 years later. And I'm just using 100 years later as a baseline number. But some scriptures, there's some of these people will say like, oh, the writings of Paul, certain writings of Paul were either added in 100 years later, or that never was in there. It was only added in. And it's purposeful lying while holding the title of being scholarly or historian. And there's people who follow these types of scholars out there or historians out there, and believe that what they're saying is true, so they don't do the actual footwork and finding out, no, they're actually being purposefully and willfully lying. Like, willfully lying. It's not like someone's making a mistake like, oh, that was put in there 100 years later, and then the information is actually given to them and they're shown that information, like, oh, instead of being honest and saying, oh, okay, I had the years wrong, or the year or the term of it even being added in is wrong. So they're going based off scholars that are being completely dishonest, not taking the information that is being shown to them, like, oh, okay, so I studied this, I had this part of the information wrong, and it's okay to be wrong. It really is. It's fine to be wrong. I'm wrong 100 times. There's scholars out there that are wrong 100 times, even the ones that I've followed. But see, the ones that I've followed, which would be like Wes Huff, Wes Huff. There is, well, I'm drawing a blank. John Lennox, William Craig, Dr. Turek. There's another one there. He's a rabbi too. Anyway, I follow certain scholars that when they're corrected on information, they're honest about it. It's like, oh, I gotta revisit this and then correct myself. Whereas some of these scholars, that some of these people, this person, I'm not going to mention her name, but it's not worthy of mentioning, because she's dishonest herself, because of how she backed out, because of an abortion post that she made, and I commented on it, and I was asking for where she was getting her actual information from. She was using Hebrew translation or Hebrew words, and she could not give me where she cited it from. Like, she didn't have any pinpoint citation on it. And not to mention, she's saying that it was all added in like thousands of years earlier or something along those lines. I don't know. But those types of dishonest people follow these dishonest scholars so that it could fit their own narrative, their feelings, and their perspective on what they feel and what they think, and abide to, because it fits their feelings. I mean, that's why people do that. That's why dishonest people follow dishonest people. And then they don't learn anything. And then when you want to have the engagement of conversation, they cower away from it at the last minute, because they think that they have some type of high moral ground on their information where they're completely wrong about it, and they don't want to be challenged on it. So they just want you to agree with them and go along with what they're saying. It's like 100% the most liberal socialist Marxist way to think. It's like, oh no, we can have a conversation, but you can't challenge me on nothing. You can't challenge me on something that's going to trigger my feelings. You can't, like, it's the most gaslighting garbage. It's cowardice. It's complete cowardice. And this is why when we try to have, well, this is why we have division in the first place, because we can't have these actual conversations that matter. And if you're challenged on that information and you're wrong, you can't be honest enough to say, like, okay, you're right, I'm wrong, let me look at this, or I'm wrong, you're right, and then find some kind of common ground of understanding. Like, if you can debate opinions and you can debate the translation of a fact into truth, but it's the truth and it's the fact, and you cannot change that. It doesn't care about your feelings. Your feelings matter at nothing. Your feelings don't matter when it comes to truth and when it comes to facts. It just doesn't. And some people will say, like, oh, well, like that's triggering. That just makes somebody less value. No, it doesn't. The truth is whatever that truth is, whatever that fact is. If it hurts your feelings, it doesn't matter. The truth doesn't lie, and the fact doesn't change. There's facts and truths out there that I don't like. There's a scripture. There's a scripture. I'm trying to remember it offhand, but he in the Bible, I believe it's the Levites, and it's the Sabbath. It's Shabbat, and the guy disobeys Shabbat to go collect wood, where he should have collected wood prior to when Shabbat starts. Instead, he collects it during Shabbat, where no one else will be around for him to go grab that wood. He gets found out, and when he's found out, the people go to God and they say, "What do we do with him?" And God says to stone him to death. So the Israelites during this time, and I'm trying to remember the scripture. But how the story of this scripture goes is that during that time, the punishment on an Israelite if they disobeyed Shabbat is death. It's harsh, right? Like, that's really harsh. Like, I still have trouble accepting. See, that's the thing. I don't have to. My feelings aren't going to change the fact. My feelings aren't going to change the truth. But you do have a right to accept it or not. You don't have to accept it as truth. You don't have to accept it as fact, but it doesn't change that it's a fact. It does not change that it is a truth. When I read that scripture, I'm still trying to remember I can't remember. Let me see if I could find if I sent it to her too, but I don't want to look her thing up. I had sent it to my best friend. He's Jewish, because this is in Torah, or Old Testament for those who don't know it. Anyway, I'm almost certain I did send it to him. I don't remember. I just don't remember what book and verse or chapter and verse. I don't even remember what book either. Source Bible. Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to find it. We send way too much stuff to each other. But anyway, like I said, the story of this man is stoned to death because he disobeys Shabbat, and Shabbat is it's a holy day. It's a feast day to have with God, right? And the penalty for an Israelite to disobey Shabbat is being killed. Right? It's harsh, right? Super harsh. That was then. And what's funny is that her response to that was like super like supportive of it, because during the time and all that stuff. But if you bring up anything that is like Christ, where Christ, had was against anything that out of the natural order of things, when Christ says, keep my commands, things like that, people like her want to customize the idea of what Christ's love is, what God's love is currently, and base it upon their own feelings on what that love should be and how that love should be represented as. And that's I'm gonna have to probably get Dan on here, and because me and Dan have gone back and forth on getting coming on this show, and I want to get him on here. I'm just waiting for all the New Year's stuff to pass over, but I want to get him on here because he's really good. He knows scripture very well. That's another guy to follow. The Dan Badandi show. Follow him. For those who are listening, Truth Radio show on Rumble and YouTube, I believe. He's a great guy. He's a great friend, and he knows scripture very well. But the story of this man being stoned to death, even me, I accept the fact that it's scripture. I accept the fact that it's God's law upon the Israelites or upon anyone that disobeys Shabbat. I don't have to accept the fact that it was done. Because there's many routes that we can go with based on that scripture alone. And again, I can't remember the scripture. I can't remember the book. I know it's in there somewhere, and I'll have to find it and maybe bring it back up in a different podcast at a later time. But just because it's the truth, just because it's the fact, yeah, you don't have to accept. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to accept it, but it doesn't change that it's a fact, and it doesn't change that it's a truth. I know I've been harping on this truth, fact, feeling stuff, but that's the truth, and that's a fact. You cannot change the fact. You cannot change the truth unless you have some advanced evidence, or if you bring evidence that overrides whatever that fact and whatever that truth is. Then the discussion happens on the validity of it. But beyond that, if you don't have any of that, then your feelings are null and void when it comes to facts, when it comes to truth, when it comes to logic and common sense. Your feelings do not matter. Your feelings never matter on changing a fact, on changing a truth. It just doesn't. Yes, you're allowed to feel about whatever that is if you have a discrepancy with it, sure. I have discrepancies with truth and facts all the time. I can't change those things. I can't change what that is. Nor would I. Unless I had some type of time machine that could just rearrange what, for instance, like slavery. If I had a time machine, I would hope that didn't happen for humanity. On all levels. I'm not just talking about chattel slavery in America. I'm talking about the sub-Saharan slave trade, the transatlantic slave trade. I'm talking about all slave trade throughout all human history. I wish that shit never happened because we're in such a fallen state, not just based on that alone, but we're in a fallen state. That's why that occurred in the first place. And that's another part of scripture where people get where people get misconstrued is the slavery aspect of the Bible is completely different from the slavery aspect of human history on the transatlantic and sub-Saharan slave trade. Two massively different things, and I don't want to get too far in the weeds of that. But yeah, if I had a time machine, I would rather not slavery have to be part of human history at all. I don't say that nonchalantly. I mean that sincerely. I would rather that not be a part of human history at all. War, famine, disease, all of that. All of these things are done by, and that's another thing with this person that I'm, and not just her, but there's a lot of people out there that think that people like these things happen in our human history, and it was done on the basis of them not being sinful in the first place. It just happened. It just so happens to be. I'm going based on their type of understanding. It just happens to be that we're in a fallen state, so people are inherently sinful, and that's a good discussion to have, because I don't know if people are inherently sinful or inherently good. I think we're inherently good because we were based and created off of goodness, but we fell into sinful and evil based off of our fallenness, our disobedience, our lack of discipline, lack of knowledge, lack of truth, lack of godliness. And the way that these new age thinkers tend to be is that people are somehow like people aren't inherently evil, people aren't inherently sinful, just they're lost, which I agree with. I mean, I agree with the lost fact. I don't agree that we're inherently sinful. We just are sinful because our world is. So we're born into it. And it's a deep topic. I mean, I'm just saying this. I'm saying this in some way based off an opinion, but I'm also basing it off of scriptural understanding. Because I look at it like this: if everyone was like top tier level evil, like everyone's out there like just wanting to commit mass unalivings and just completely like hell-bent destructiveness and all that stuff, yeah, we'd probably all be extinct by now, or to some degree. You wouldn't be able to step outside. You wouldn't be able to step outside of your home if you're even capable of having a home, because somebody else is trying to take it from you. All at the same time, you're trying to take somebody else's home, so on and so forth. I mean, we have thousands and thousands of years of historical referencing where this has taken place amongst every culture, amongst every belief system, amongst every ethnic background in human history. Every single culture has witnessed or has been the victim or the victimizer of somebody else. In like early American history, for instance, we're taught that Black people immediately, or Native Americans immediately, which may even be to some degree one and the same. That's a whole other discussion that I don't have enough time to get into right now tonight. But I do plan on having those types of historical conversations, because a great guest that I would have on here to talk about that would be Ray Watson, Ray Two Hawks Watson. He would know a lot about that. I know a few people that would know a lot about that, but definitely he would. But early American history, it's immediate where this land is being bombarded and taken over almost indiscriminately by Europeans. And it's under my understanding that prior to Europeans, the Moors came here first under expeditions with other European nations. Like I think Spain would be one of them. In fact, Spain harbored there's a mixture of history with Spain because the Moors had Spain, and Spain ended up relinquishing their power and taking over and conquering the Moors in that land. So there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of gaps that our children miss out, especially in the public school systems, of our early American history. Not even just early American history, but world history. And I had a point to this, and I kind of lost my point to this. I don't think initially when people come across each other, it's immediately, oh, I want to enslave that person, or I want to just murder that person, or I just want to take them out completely and then take everything that they've got. I really do think it doesn't begin like that, because if it began like that, we would never have any cultural, ethnic, national evolution between the many tribes of people that live here on Earth. I don't see that as a possibility of being able to expand into other nations and being able to coagulate cultural differences while at the same time having had historical bouts of war, famine, conquering and all that stuff. I really think that what the sub-Saharan slave trade is and was, and the transatlantic slave trade is and was, and slavery in general between empires and nations and all that stuff is the complete disassociation and disruption of dialogue, of diplomacy. It's like and I don't even know how to actually put that in a wide scenario, because it's literally an empire leader making the decision, creating the decision making over another nation's empire and leader. You have a resource. Let's make a deal on that resource, or if we don't make a deal on that resource, I got to go over there and take it because my people need it, or whatever. With that in mind, it's clear that a lot of ego, a lot of self-centeredness, and a complete lack of humanity, a complete lack of God in general. Like ultimately, where it always leads back to Yeshua and Yahweh. It always leads back to the garden, because it's one nation trying to take over another nation for a resource, for their people as a resource, for their land as a resource, for whatever that land bears as a resource, and so on and so forth. And eventually, it's a complete lack of humanity and a lack of godliness, because what you're doing it on the basis of, my land needs that, or my people's land needs to expand into that land in order to take over and expand my empire. Whereas you're forgetting about the ultimate empire, which is the one that we all should be serving under the understanding of what Scripture tells us. Now, someone could say like, "Oh, well, that's just being too preaching. That's just being too like Old Testament. That's being too New Testament, or whatever." Show me and tell me a different way that would inform us and lead us descriptively, by logic, by common sense, on how a better path could be that Scripture does not tell us to do. If you show me the Buddhists, if you show me the Krishnas, if you show me the Muslims, if you show me the new age, the new age spiritualists, the witchcrafters, if you show me any of that has enough common sense and enough logic and enough truth that supersedes any scriptural telling, I'll believe it and I'll go with that. But if you can't, if you can't write Yeshua out of it, I don't want to hear it. And I don't say this arrogantly that I don't want to hear it. I mean this in a way like, because I do want to hear the perspective, but I mean this in a way as, if you have something that's better than what Yeshua has taught and what Yahweh has taught us, then that needs to be presented in a very logical, common sense form. Because if we don't have that, if we don't, for instance, picture a world without Scripture. Picture a world without even acknowledging a creator, a true creator that somehow was inspired to. Somehow mankind and the prophets were inspired to write about this so-called creator, and eventually leading into a prophecy that brings down a Mashiach in the name of Yeshua, and then tells his story in his time here, where it's uniquely separates itself from the rest of all of the other faiths and all of the other beliefs and all the other pantheistic belief systems, including Judaism, for that matter. Shouts to Brittany. Peace be. Appreciate you for tuning in. She says, that's real shit. I feel like a lot of it was based on survival. When you can't come to an agreement, you have to take by force. Yeah, I mean, I think it's, because none of us lived in that time, so we don't really know how or what we would do per se. I think maybe we have an idea what we would do, but we aren't living in straw huts. We aren't living in mud houses or stone created cliff. People live on stone houses off of cliffs practically. In some of these cases, some people lived underground. Some people lived in high ass mountains. Some people lived on the lowlands in straw huts and whatever. Some people across the planet still do that, and God bless them, because I feel like that's more happier living than living in a concrete jungle. Not for nothing, I love the woods, by the way. I think the woods are amazing. I think the forest is amazing. I think fresh, natural running water in a river is amazing. I think campfires are amazing because it all feels nostalgic to me. I think that's how we're supposed to be honest with you. I think technology, so I'm going off into another rant, but here we go. This is the ADHD ride, ladies and gentlemen. The technology, even though I love technology because I'm able to, just voice my thoughts and stuff like that, either through music or or podcasting or whatever. I love it. But I really feel like our technology brings us so much further away from our need with Creator that we forget so much how beautiful this planet is, how beautiful nature is, how beautiful a campfire is when you first light it up and you get that excited feeling of warmth and, watching a fire just grow and create coals and create warmth and create light, and you can cook over it, and it gives it a different taste when you cook over something like that, when it's natural, in the natural state of what you're supposed to be doing. Being in the vulnerability of a wooded area, pitching a tent or whatever, and being able to sleep on the ground and listen to the outside world, where whether it be deer at night stomping around, running around, or an owl or whatever. These are things that not many people allow themselves to bear witness to, and these are beautiful things. I've had the luxury to do that a few times, and I love doing that. And I encourage anyone that does love the outdoors to do stuff like that. But yeah, so where was it? Where was I going with the straw hut stuff? Oh, so yeah, at that time, I do think people may have had somewhat of a reasonable position on saying like, hey, I got to take these people over because I need their resources. But the point I'm trying to make is like the only reason why that is and why that's happened is because those people who have done that to each other and vice versa have had a lack of accountability, a lack of discipline with God, a disconnection from God, basically. Not basically, quite literally, because if we believe that God does provide, which He does, because who feeds the birds? It's the first question that I ask someone that doesn't really believe or has a hard time believing in a creator. It's like, who feeds the birds? And someone will say, well, the bugs do. And all right, who feeds the bugs? Who feeds the water? The water is a living thing. Who feeds the water? How does the water get there? How does the planet rotate its seasons globally in some areas? Who put all this stuff there? So it wasn't us. It wasn't some human being that did that. It had to have been something that's outside of that. And the reason why human beings tend to destroy each other, and I'm not saying all human beings, because there's many of us that do that. But the ones that are like have been in control for a few thousand years now are really the culprits that are dealing with something else that's like kind of otherworldly. I was just having this conversation today with my wife Nye, and I was telling her, I was like, there's no way, and I've probably said this before in the past with people having conversations about this. Is like, there's no way that whatever that's happening, whatever that's in action, like whatever the culpability of these nations, these powerful nations, America, the West, Russia, China, the Middle East and all that stuff, the Islamic nation and all that stuff. There's a conglomerate of these people who are a part of a much smaller group, and they are heavily involved with the occult, much like how the Third Reich was with Hitler and the Nazis. And these are all the same people. These are all part of the same. Like Hitler was a part of that as much as the head of NASA was a part of it, right? And all these people, they get together and they have these occult meetings, but they're dealing with something that's very old and very like it's biblical. If you look into the genealogy of Genesis and stuff like that, you'll find out who these people actually are. And what these people are. Not who, but what. Right? It's all demonically influenced and all that stuff. But that's just a simple way of saying like it's evil. There's actual there's actual beings involved with what's going on. But look, ladies and gentlemen, I did this show for a little bit longer than I thought I was going to. I feel like I say that all the time when I have a podcast. I'm open to have anybody and everybody to come on here. So be on the lookout for that. I know I'm a month late doing a show. There was a few shows I was supposed to do. Like I said, in the beginning of the show and in the middle of it, that person had backed out because they're just a coward. They just don't know how to handle conversations. But I also had some stuff planned with a veteran, Deacon Taylor, and haven't had him on here yet. He has me and him don't agree on a lot of things, but he is, but he does make a lot of points on a lot of stuff that I want to talk to him about. I've been scheduling with him. It's just been kind of hard on my end because the stuff that has been going on with my mother at the time, and the holidays, and then work ultimately. But this week, I'll just mention this too. On the 27th, I am turning the big 4-0. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that's right. You don't get this handsome quite like this until you reach 40. So pay attention, young men. You got to make it. You got to make it to get this. You got to make it to be this handsome at 40. But listen, I appreciate y'all for tuning in to the True Perspective on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and Rumble. I know I'm ending this a little bit early, so I apologize. I will be back after the new year. After January 1st, I'll set up another date on the podcast. Hopefully I get a guest on here. I'm thinking that's probably going to be Deacon. I know there's a few out there. There's Brooke and there's Dan Badandi that I want to get on here. There's also, I'm going to bring somebody back on too. He goes by Mecca. I had him on last time. We've talked about some wild stuff before, about the nation of gods and earths, and we don't totally agree on how that origin story comes from, but I think we're going to get beyond that. We're actually going to talk about some other stuff that's more relevant to the times, because I know he wants to come back on here, and he's a good conversationalist too. But you know, that's the thing too. Like, I have people on here that I don't necessarily agree with everything, but I used this podcast, one, to find some common ground and understanding, but also for myself too. Like, not to give or teach understanding to somebody else, but for my own teaching and understanding, because I'm forever a student. I'm forever a student of life. And with that said, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, keep tuning in to the True Perspective on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and Rumble. I will see y'all next time. I appreciate everybody that's tuned in, everyone that's commented. It always helps. And make sure you like, share, subscribe. Like, share, subscribe on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and Rumble. Also find me on Instagram and TikTok. Sometimes I put up small snippets of episodes on there. So be on the lookout for that. I appreciate y'all. Thank you. And I'll see y'all next time. Thank you. Love y'all. Peace. If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
This is a struggle for the survival.
Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
And this will be our last chance to say it.
I'm trying to free your mind. It is this feeling that has brought you to me.
At last.
No judge in U.S. history has ever told somebody what they can and can't say.
The whole purpose of the First Amendment is to keep the government the hell out of the business of speech.
Many of us had to be brought to the brink. A lot of us here have a calling
I can only show you the door.
to awaken others.
You're the one that has to walk through it.
Spreading a message.
Something's happening, right?
The world is changing every day.
Civilization is weird.
Time is coming.
That
The train
tripping.
can't be stopped. Momentum is already here.